problem where you're pipetting some liquid and then it splashes back up into your tip. This can happen if you release your thumb too quickly. And so the best thing to do is to prevent it, and I'll talk about that. But what do you do if you actually really need to get this sample out? So there are a couple strategies that you can use. The first thing I try typically is just to re-pipette up, or that time it just came straight out. But especially if your sample's kind of viscous, it can get stuck in the tip. So what you can do in a case like this is, I just put a little blue dye in here so you can see it easier, is just to now just try repipetting up and then sucking it out slowly. So you want to release slowly. Make sure that your thumb is pushed down as you pull out. If you pull your thumb out too quickly, then the liquid is going to jump back up. This can especially happen, like I said, if your sample's kind of viscous, so it's kind of syrupy. What happens with those solutions is they're kind of making interactions with the pipette tip. So you want to give them alternatives. So what you can do to help get it out is to pipette directly onto the side of the tube, give it tube interactions to help pull it out of the pipette, or also into the tip of the liquid to help give it liquid-liquid interactions. And those are all going to help overcome those liquid pipette interactions and really help pull things out. And make sure that when you put your tip in, though, that you're just putting it like a little bit below the surface of the liquid. You don't want to be putting it like too far deep, because then you're going to get liquid stuck on the outside of your pipette tip. And then when you pull it out, well, now you've lost volume. And our whole point of like fixing our error was that if we do our little like too quick release and then we have it back up in the tip, now we're losing volume. Plus, as you can see, in this case, it splashed all the way back up here, which has the risk of now getting onto the part of the pipette, getting onto this part and then contaminating things. So when we're working with sensitive things, like when I work with RNA or when I work with something that's radioactive, in the case of the RNA, I don't want to be contaminating it with stuff from other samples that may be splashed onto here. In the case of radioactivity, I don't want the radioactivity to be splashing onto my pipette. And so in those cases, I use a filter tip, which actually has a filter to prevent the liquid from going up, all the way up, but it will still get caught in the filter, and then you're going to lose volume. Speaking of removing these tips, often what I do is if I can't get the liquid out just based on one of those methods. So for example, if I tried to suck the liquid up, I might be able to to repipette and let it go slower this time and pull it out. I might be able to get rid of this, but not the stuff that's higher up. And so typically what I do is I take the tip off and I replunge the tip over my tube. It's hard to do this while recording, but basically then I it'll help push the liquid out. And I can do that multiple times if I need to. Okay, but what if it's still stuck up here? So like, what about the stuff stuck in here? So a couple strategies you can use. One, I take a smaller pipette tip, and I actually try to either suck it off of the tube, or most commonly, if you can't, just kind of like condense all that liquid together and push it further down. Now you should be able to push it out with your other pipette. Now you can be able to, depending on what volume you're pipetting all the way up and then go back down, keep pushing all the way down, and voila. And so sometimes you might actually have to, if it's stuck and you can't push it out, what you can do is you can take like a clean razor and actually cut off the tip of the pipette if it's stuck too high up, and that way you can either push it out now, or you can take a pipette from the bottom and pull it out. And again, you want to avoid having to do all of these things, so make sure that when you're pipetting, you don't release your thumb before you have pulled out of the liquid, and make sure that all of the liquid is out before you pull out of the liquid. So especially in the case of viscous solutions, where your liquid might be going slower than you would expect. And so if you're pipetting just like water or whatever, you might have like, oh, I need to push this much, and then pull, you have like this set in your head, like how long something something's going to take. And then you go and you pipette something viscous, and now it's moving like way slower out of the tube, so, or out of the pipette. So by the time when you think it's time to pull out of the solution, now what you have is that you actually still have a lot of the solution that hasn't come out. And so then when you pull up, then it's all going to jump back up. Another time something similar happens is if you're pipetting something volatile, something like ethanol or methanol or isopropanol, things that are going to evaporate quickly. And so you can see that you kind of get this like push back into the pipette tip. And you can kind of get rid of it by letting it then like kind of settle down and then pushing it out if that happens, and then doing it like onto directly into the liquid so that it kind of bubbles down into it. But you can prevent this from happening better in the first place by pre-wetting your pipette. So before you actually go to do your final pipette, pipette it up and down a couple times. And this is going to help equilibrate the air inside of the pipette so that it's equilibrated with whatever's going to evaporate. And then you can more easily take things out and then slowly pipette up. And then you have less of the issue with the stuff coming back. And so remember to keep your thumb pushed down, make sure the liquid comes all the way out, then keep your thumb held down and pull out of the solution. And that should help you avoid having this problem happen in the first place. If the problem does happen, then don't panic. First, try pipetting up. If it's in the bottom, you can still probably get it this way, where you just pipette up, get the liquid to come into contact with the liquid that's stuck in the tube, and then help push it out as normal. If you have it higher up, then what you can do is you can try a couple things. You can try removing the pipette. Make sure that you're holding this over the tube though, in case any leaks out, that it's going to leak out, or when you push it out, it's going to happen into your tube and not just into who knows where. And then when you push down, now you have a little extra force because you're pushing some air and stuff in there that can help push it further down, either all the way out or far enough down that you can then pipette the liquid up like normal. All else fails, take a smaller pipette and try to push it out or push it down. And if it's stuck in a place where you can't do that, try cutting off the tip and getting it out that way. But again, try to avoid having to do all this, but there are times when it happens, and when it's a really precious sample and it's not enough, you can't just be like, oh, I'll just make it again, you know? So sometimes you can't do that, and so these tips I hope will help you in those situations, but I hope I can help you avoid those situations in the first place. Okay, that was your random fact of the day, and happy lobbing.